It is uniquely unsettling to hear a reporter with a six-figure salary ask why anyone would try to expedite the opening of the economy. So, this is a thought that I came with specifically after having watched several days of this White House pressers, where President Donald J. Trump of the United States of America goes out and he talks about what the United States of America and, in extension, the world at large is doing in dealing with this current pandemic that is going on from the CCP virus. And for some of you who don't know, and chances are if you listen to this, you do know because it's been something very open, but this, I think, has been a rather unique situation, another unprecedented situation with a very unprecedented individual in that of Donald J. Trump, to see the interaction and dynamic that he has had with some significant parts of the mainstream media in the United States of America that I think Bill Whittle has accurately called as essentially the audiovisual department, specifically the Democrat Party in the United States of America. So there's no love lost between them. President Trump often calls them fake news. This is a term that, interestingly enough, the media darling of Hillary Clinton, I think, first coined in its very public sense sometime during or right after her unprecedented or rather surprising to the media loss that I think was that initial fatal wound that the media has just been hemorrhaging for and just slowly and slowly losing weakness. But like a trapped animal, like an animal cornered or an animal just having that last burst of energy, it is still out there and fighting and they just seem to be still feisty there. And I think we're seeing the end of what the media was. And I don't think that end of Hillary Clinton's campaign was the initial wound. That was a battle that was an ongoing thing where it had already been weakened from what it was before. I was talking to a friend of mine and saying, where do you think this started? And I think it was with the internet in general, just a different way of sharing information. Because I don't think it's the quality of information. I don't think the media has necessarily changed in being selective of what they report. It's still just the news, it's still just a business. You look at news channels and they seem to be reporting the same stories. You go to, for example, the sports networks and different sporting networks talking about sporting news. There's all sorts of sports being played, there's different leagues, different levels, but depending on the region and the target demographics, you will find competing channels pretty much talking about these same stories almost in the same direction because they have done research on their demographics and realized in order for us to remain profitable, this is what people actually want to watch. Then the model with advertising and things like that. And I think with that, with the newspapers, with the mainstream media, we're talking the CNNs, the New York Times, the newspaper-based ones, and the cable news versions, they were entrenched. They kind of were like dinosaurs, and the internet came crashing down as a meteorite once that started. And then now we're in the situation where now there's a cloud covering the earth, cloud of information where other things are actually existing that are getting more strength from this kind of new environment. Yet the dinosaurs are used to feeding on a sort of material, sort of content, certain delivery of information that doesn't exist anymore. So I think that has already been there. Then the interests came in who are actually paying these people because you're still seeing things. Like I saw this with Rachel Maddow, still considered an essential worker. She makes about $7 million a year for her show. I wanted to check with Jim Acosta, who is a CNN anchor or reporter who has had many spats with President Donald J. Trump. And in particular, he was kind of needling Trump on why are we opening the economy in this way? You're putting people in danger. Why are people out protesting? Why would you support this? Why don't you demand these people stop? And let me not even get into the whole aspect where they say Trump didn't do this. Trump took time to actually shut things down. Then when Trump is saying, yeah, we can open the country. Oh, you don't have the ability to open the country. So these things, there are extra things. It has become rather extra how disjointed this is. But the being out of touch, the whole situation with most of the news media being centered in New York and them being rather wealthy and rather upper class and rather, like, I don't think they have friends who are in other fields or in other social classes. They just have the same mentalities and the same ideas. They can't seem to relate that there could be people who in this time when someone has selected who is essential, who is unessential workers, that not everyone is like Jim Acosta sitting there getting to speak to the President of the United States of America on an almost daily basis and continue to cash his $700,000 a year paycheck, which I went down and checked. It was just like, how there's something unsettling about this. There's something out of touch. Like there's something very, he's just seeming to score points. And I think the same way that the same way with this current virus, how we're seeing there's other comorbidities for certain things, and then the virus comes about, and that is the thing that finally takes down the person who's already weakened. I think that is akin to what Donald J. Trump has been to some of these people. Him coming in is kind of the embodiment that finally knocks out the last of the weakening immune system that these kind of institutions had to actually keep open and keep doing what they were doing. To have this whole situation where we can find ways to harvest these divisions and this fear and these objections and these small little groups that will come to us for this information. And then there's also a situation where you're looking at the actual ages of some of these people. The main demographics of some of these people is surprisingly older than you may think. And this is in part due to the fact that, hey, these people, these other people, these demographics who are listening to them grew up as kids where when they thought, I need information, I need news, I go to the newspaper, I go to the television. So they still have that hard ingrained in them. They still have that in their minds. Yet the younger people, like, no, we go on Facebook, we go on our walls, we go on YouTube and we get clips, we talk to each other, we go to like group chats and things like that. There's other places to get information. We go direct to the sources, we go to these independent channels. So I think Trump is kind of like that virus where it has kind of gotten them to focus and say, this is the thing. Maybe if we defeat this thing, we can, but I don't think they will. But there was just something specifically unsettling about them not being able to get that. And I don't think it's necessarily so much that, oh, the reporters and the media was just so much better in the past. It's like, no, they were as selective in the past. It's just the selection criteria right now has changed, in part due to the fact that there's just much fewer people interested in this content in this way. And also the business model that they use. And certain interests have come in to own these and shape them ideologically in some sense, where there's some things they don't talk about, some things they do talk about. The same way you have that questionable rotating door between certain moneyed interest in like the stock market, in the finance department, in the security departments, in that private sector. You have people coming more from the Republican Party. They'll be a politician, they'll be a senator, they'll be in the public sector, then they'll go work for like Northrop Grumman, some kind of military, private sector military thing, and then they're switching back and forth and like, there might be some situation in there where there might be a conflict of interest. You should look into that. But then on the inverse, they don't necessarily do that when you look at the news, and there's a lot of people who are Democratic Party officials working in the public sector, and then they come out and they get a contract with MSNBC is coming on to talk about certain topics, or they're working for New York Times. If there's a story, they're like, okay, we're going to go talk to this person. This person held this position, so every time there is a situation that deals with minorities, we'll come to this person because this person was this sort of official about diversity in this person's actual administration. So there is that rotating door there as well. So these are just things that in specific in the situation where people are really struggling, and they still are as you're hearing this, and they probably will be an extended effect. It's just telling to see how out of touch some of these people are, because to them, they're also just human beings. They're just as out of touch as we would say somebody who was raised with a silver spoon would be out of touch. This whole Jenny from the block thing doesn't make sense when you now live in a house that is the size of a block. And that's life. People adjust, people change. I'm not saying Jim Acosta should just be exactly the same as somebody who's making $22,000 a year at this small town restaurant that was also created by this older person in the town that they knew since they were kids, and they finally got that job, and now they're expecting a kid, and that little restaurant can't open. They're seeing this person have their business kind of just fall down. This nice old man that has been helping them, that hired them, gave them the first job, that now they can actually support their family on. This old man's business is turning down. That's been something that's been in that town for multiple generations. They don't really understand why that person would actually be like, I'm protesting this. I want the economy to reopen as fast as possible. For some people, they just don't get it. And it's just a bit unsettling to see that. So that was it for this one. This is part of my shorty series where I just take little thoughts that I've condensed and post on different social media, then I expand on them in video form, on this audio form, and then I share them so we can engage in a conversation with you listeners or watchers and viewers. That is much appreciated. So let me know what you think in the comment section about this. Do you think it's unsettling? Are you more unsettled by the people who are trying to protest, who want this? Or do you understand both sides? Where do you stand on this aspect? Did you notice this thing in particular as well? And links below to our merchandise store as well. Like, share, and subscribe if you are not subscribed. There's also PayPal link for one-time donations if you have any extra money and you think this is valuable and would like to support me. It would be much appreciated, but just taking your time to listen is already enough. Anything else is a much appreciated bonus. Till next time, goodbye.